All right, welcome in everyone. This is Sean with MTG808 Jr. and I'm joined today by Mike.
What's up?
And Eric.
Hello, hello.
And we are going to be going over our most recent tournament that we ran, right? Youth Standard Pauper over at the Planet. Let's see, we're recording this on Sunday, so it was yesterday that the tournament was. Hopefully this video will be up by tonight. We'll see. Probably you might be listening to this on Monday. We'll see. But it was this weekend. We had six players.
Yes.
Yep.
3 rounds of Swiss cut to top 2. And we saw 3 players brought decks that we've seen before, right? Jace we featured in our last video, right? Playing blue-red spells. Sydney and Skylar here are both playing mono-white aggro.
Yep. Nothing really changed besides pacifism.
Yeah, I mean, like, mono-white aggro, it's got pacifism now.
Yeah.
It's still got all the great creatures. But we are going to go over Jeffrey's deck. He did not make the final. What place did he finish? What was his record?
He was. Sorry, I have my paper here.
I know
He was third, but he was sixth. So he had 1 point.
Okay. So he didn't do that well, but he did come with like a spicy brew. So we'll take a look at his deck, and then in the finals we had brothers, the Jacobowitzes.
Sibling rivalry.
Yeah, Luca came in second place, and Julian came in first place. And they were both playing spicy decks.
Yep.
Well, I guess Julian was playing a carbon copy of your end boss deck last week, but Luca brought a pretty spicy one.
Yes.
Same strategy that Jansen won the last tournament with, but he definitely built his own list, right? He had different assumptions that he started with when he was building, and it paid off enough for him to get second place. So we'll start by taking a look here at Jeffrey's deck. Mono black aggro.
Oh, this is your favorite, right?
I was really hoping that mono black was going to get some of the tools that it needed to start competing. The big one, of course, being Audacious Thief. I was hoping that Blood Burglar.
A Rat Burglar?
No, the 2/2 with lifelink when it's your turn.
Oh, yeah.
Jeffrey chose not to play him, but I do think that the black aggro decks, they have a plethora of 1-drop options and a bunch of good 2-drop options. If you want to build mono black aggro. So some of the choices that Jeffrey made here, he's got a ton of 1-drops, right? Blightkeeper, 1 mana, 1/1 flyer. I did see him activate this ability once. It seemed like he was super far behind, but he did activate the ability once, so not just a 1 mana, 1/1 flyer. Stronghold Confessor is another 4-of. This one is a 1-drop that is sometimes a 4-drop, right? 1 mana, 1/1 menace. Not that great. Might get in for a couple points, but then if you kick it and it's a 3/3 menace, they're going to have to be double blocking it, and then Disfigure and Skullduggery come into play. So Stronghold Confessor, his second 1-drop of choice, and then he's also got 4 Thirsting Shade, 1 mana, 1/1 lifelink, just for those racing situations.
Yes.
The Shade ability to pump it up for 3 mana, kind of expensive.
Yes.
I've seen him pump it up a lot, though.
Okay, how big did you see him get it? Like, was he pumping it?
5/5?
Whoa.
5/5 or 4/4?
So he pumped it 3 or 4 times?
Yeah.
Pumping it 4 times seems absurd in his deck. Maybe he had a short sword on it or a Skullduggery trigger or something. But yeah, like this thing, I don't know if I like 4 copies in the deck, but I do like some number of this in the deck just as like a mana sink, and the lifelink is very relevant.
There is also that Grasping Scoundrel I think is also a good choice in the 1-drop slot.
Oh, this guy, the pirate?
Yes.
He's definitely more aggressive than
I see this more as like a
Shade.
tempo attrition kind of thing.
Yeah. I just hate that it has no evasion.
Yeah.
Or
right.
Hired Poisoner, 1/1 Death Touch.
Yeah. So notably he chose not to play the Hired Poisoner and the what is the
Skittering
Heartstopper is the other Death Touch guy. I like those in aggro, but he was, a lot of the times the Death Touch creatures, they'll get in for like 1 or 2 points of damage and then trade for their worst creature.
Yes.
Which isn't a bad deal, but I think he made some of his choices hoping to get a little more than that out of his 1 mana creatures. And then the last 1-drop, he's only playing 2 Sanitarium Skeletons. This was another one of the black cards that we identified from M20 as making an impact. Did you guys see him using this
I see him.
effectively? I
Yes,
saw him like chump
yeah.
blocking a bunch with
Yeah.
it and like getting in some value in racing situations.
I think especially round 1, because round 1 he was playing against Sydney. So there are
Against
instances
Mono White
where
Aggro.
Mm-hmm.
where he'd be activating the the ability of the skeleton.
Yeah, just to get it back every turn.
I see it
So-
more as like an aristocrats kind of thing though, or something where
Right,
you
you want it in a deck that where you're sacrificing it
Yeah.
or like discarding it or
like
something
bone
like
splinters or that the one with the
that. Soul Harvest is,
yeah,
is the
stuff like
strictly
that.
better bone splinters. Yeah.
He probably could have also put like a Vicious Hunger, that 2-drop from Dominaria. I think it like -2/-2 kicker, sacrifice a creature.
Oh, Vicious Offering.
Vicious Offering, yeah.
I
sorry.
think that's an
Yeah.
uncommon, or is that a common?
No,
That's
a common.
That's
Oh.
a common from Dominaria.
Yeah. Well, so for his spells, he chose to play Disfigure, which is a great
Yes.
tempo play,
Mhm.
and then Skullduggery is also a good tempo play to help the 1-drop creatures like punch through. I don't know how many more spell slots he can reasonably have. I do like the inclusion of Abnormal Endurance.
Oh, definitely.
Especially with his 2-drops that cantrip, and Audacious Thief is like encouraging your
Mhm.
opponents to block you. Abnormal Endurance is a little awkward with Stronghold Confessor. Right? if you have it kicked in play and then you
Yeah.
have Normal Endurance it comes back as a 1/1, which is a little embarrassing. But I do like his spells are good at helping his creatures punch through. But just like seeing, I was only at the tournament for the beginning of round 1 and then I had to leave. But like the match that I did see him play, like the deck just felt much less exciting than Mono Black Aggro felt
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that it felt great in the past was because of Night Market Lookout.
Which is nice. Is that
The when it becomes tapped, it drains them for
Yeah.
1 and you gain
Mm.
1. And it had that in Sky Skiff. So it was just like,
Sure.
you were getting the activation every turn. And like all of these cards on paper are like fine to good to
Mhm.
great. Like Dusk Legion Zelda and Audacious Thief are the backbone of a lot of great decks,
Yes.
right? So like all the cards here are fine, but it just something about just watching him play against Mono White, it seemed like this deck is not greater than the sum of its parts,
Yeah.
right?
Um,
Like it's playing good cards. They all kind of synergize together, but they're still just
I think there's
pile
just
of
not
good
really
cards.
a way to close out the game.
So
There's just so many cards where they're 1/1s or 2
Yeah.
or 1/2s where once you hit the mid game, you're not really competing with what your opponent has, especially if it's something like a mid-range deck or a control deck.
Yeah, I do think that if he were to raise the curve a little bit, it would address some of that. So like Ill-Gotten Inheritance
Sure.
would be a good way to give you some inevitability.
Oh, could I recommend one card? Try and find Gruesome Fate.
Gruesome Fate.
Right there.
What?
For each creature you control, so you could just swarm the board. And
Well,
then,
he has a-
This is like the definition of a win more card.
yeah, but if the board's stalled out? Okay, fine.
We saw him stall the board out against Mono White, and
Yeah.
he was just like on his back foot the whole time, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
he had to make trades and
Yeah.
right, and drawing this would have just been a straight dead card. But
Spark Reaper is a really good recommendation.
yeah, so I think that this archetype has some potential. I do think that trying to go like hyper 1-drop,
Yeah, I
Mono
think-
Black Aggro is just not worth it right now. Like the 1-drops are all like fine to good. None of them are amazing, but they're all like fine to good. And I think that because none of them are amazing, like Healer's Hawk, Fanatical Firebrand
Yeah.
level, like you just need to play a higher curve, I think. Or Night Market Lookout would have been amazing.
I think if you play more disruption strategy like Burglar Rat, and I think you mentioned it to him on Saturday also. Burglar Rat's also a good
Yeah,
piece.
I was telling Luca that he should play Burglar Rat.
Okay.
But just Burglar Rat would be raising the curve. It would mean that you're playing like kind of a more attrition game, which I think is fine, right? If you're playing like 4 Burglar 4 Dust Legion Zealot, 4 Lazotep Reaver,
Yes.
4 Abnormal Endurance. Like that's the backbone of a solid strategy.
So like he'll have to cut. He'll definitely need to cut the Thirsting Shades.
Yeah, like you could cut 4 to 8 of these
drops.
1-drops. He could also honestly probably cut a
Yeah.
couple lands.
Looking at his land count, it could handle 4 drops or like more 2 drops.
Plus,
Right.
it's monocolored, so he doesn't have like. I don't think that's an issue.
If he wanted to play more creatures, I like Spark Reaper if he wants to take the game long. Death Bloom Thallid is always good.
Mm-hmm.
Or the where is it? The Herald of the Dread Horde is a
he's
good
in draft.
4-drop. Yeah, Ill-Gotten Inheritance would be a good way to top the
Mhm.
curve. Even Boneclad Necromancer,
Yeah.
right? And
Oh,
the
yeah.
fact that he's not playing Blade Juggler,
That's what
I
confused
think-
me.
yeah, there should for sure be 4 Blade Jugglers in this
Mhm.
list. So, I mean, props to Jeffrey for trying out a new
Yes.
archetype. Jeffrey really likes brewing, and I give him props for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that this is a good like first draft of this archetype, and it has a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
So props to Jeffrey for trying to be innovative. I think you're on the right track. Keep going, Jeffrey. All right. Anything else on this one?
No, I think we covered all the bases.
Okay.
Excuse
So second place we had Luca playing Demir midrange, and keep him. So go check out our last video if you haven't watched it. Jansen won that tournament with a similar list. He was playing way less removal and way more creatures
Yes.
in this.
Mm-hmm.
But like talking to Luca before the tournament, he was just like, I just really want to maximize my
Yeah.
Audacious Thief
Mhm.
draws, so I'm just gonna play a pile of removal, make sure that my Audacious
Yes.
Thief is always connecting, right? And then
Yeah.
he's only playing the cantrip creatures and then 1 turtle, right? Compared to Jansen's deck that was playing the Salvager of
Yeah,
Secrets, the
right.
Soul Salvage, and you know, I think he was like 3 Dusk Legion Zealot, 3
Three.
Cloudkin Seer, 3 Audacious Thief.
Yes.
So this is definitely one way to build it. Well, I was trying to convince Luca before the tournament started that he needed to play more card draw than this, right? Like the cantripping creatures are great. If you get Audacious Thief going, it's great. But Audacious Thief isn't gonna live
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
And-
attack in every game. Like if your opponent shocks it, right,
Mhm.
and then just starts 1-for-1ing you, and you hit a land pocket,
Yeah,
you're
this
just
deck
gonna
doesn't
die.
have any counter spells, does it?
So
No, it
Well,
has
besides,
essence
well, I
scatter,
mean, like
yeah.
to counter.
like hard.
removal.
Yeah.
Right, like there's no way to protect your Audacious Thief,
Yeah.
is what you're saying. And you know, it's fine, I think, if you had more card draw. So like I had to bend his arm backwards to get him to play 2 card draw slots, and I was like,
Yeah.
you should be playing 4 to 6 card draw slots.
So like,
And
I'm
and
pretty sure-
especially because he has so much redundancy on the removal,
Mhm.
right? If he just shaved like, you know, the 2 Artful Takedowns, 1 more of the 3 mana removal spells,
Yeah.
1 of his 2 mana removal spells, and 1 more of his 1 mana removal spells, he could easily fit enough card
Mhm.
draw in here to keep the deck going smooth.
yeah.
Because I was honestly surprised that Julian beat him in the finals. So do you guys want to quickly recap
Okay.
that? So he lost to the
Boros Pants.
yeah, the Boros
So-
Aros deck.
That's fine because them two they're playing each other round 2 in the Swiss, and Julian so Julian was even telling Luca, you have to take out the audacious thief, just because whenever he's attacking he's already losing life, and that's only gonna help Julian because he's playing all the burn spells. And yeah, I think
he
he was
doesn't have a whole lot that he could bring in if he were to take out the Audacious Thieves, right? He would just have like he would be way too light on win conditions if he took out Audacious Thief.
and like he would pretty much his deck was more meant for 1-for-1 removal, one for ones.
Right,
And,
which in theory is
yeah.
really good against the pants deck, right?
Mhm.
Like they just put an aura on something and you're like, well, I'll murder it, right?
Yeah.
nice
2-for-1, thanks.
So
I was honestly surprised, but Julian was just able to race him.
yeah. So once Julian got a one of the 1-drops and just starts suiting it up, I mean there are instances where he'll destroy him, but then God's Willing just did a ton of work.
Yeah, God's
with
Willing
that,
is really
it's
good.
still in that with that in his deck. It just wow.
Yeah.
I've even seen it where he would get a pacifism on the aura creature, and then he would just give it pro white or protection from white, and it'd shrug off some of his auras, but it'd remove the pacifism, so at least he can keep going through.
Yeah. So, like, I think looking at this deck as a mental exercise to just be like, how can we maximize Audacious Thief to the ultimate possible limit? I think that this is a good.
Yes.
This accomplishes that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is that what you want to be maximizing?
No.
I don't think the answer to that question is yes. I do think that you want to have Audacious Thief be a good card in your deck, right? Like, you want to play some number of removal spells to support it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's playing like 16 or something like that. What is this? If you count Unsummon, this is 7 plus 4, that's 11
15,
plus 7
16,
here,
17,
so that's
24 removal pieces if you
Yeah.
count the Artful Takedown.
and the Essence Scatter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and even then, what happened? Like, when the Audacious Thief goes away, like, he has nothing to bring it back.
Right, noticeably missing Soul Salvage
Yeah.
and Salvager Secrets, or even Gravedigger. Gravedigger would be great in this
Yeah.
build.
Yeah, it looks like just the Cold Water Snapper is the only card that has inevitability.
Yeah. He was telling me that he wished that he had more Ill-Gotten Inheritance and maybe even some in the main deck because he wanted life gain, and I was like, why don't you just play Queen's Agent?
Yeah.
I think Queen's Agent is a great card for these strategies to just, like, you trade 1-for-1 with their early game, right? If they're using their removal spells on your cantrip creatures or Audacious Thieves, then they're not going to have removal for your Queen's Agent, and then you just take over the game with your 3/3 or 4/4 lifelink.
Yeah. But definitely, like,
So I like where he's going. I give him props for doing it for science to try and figure out, like, how to maximize Audacious Thief. I do think that given the metagame, it's correct to scale that back a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? If the metagame was just, like, only mono white aggro,
oh yeah,
then,
this one,
then
this,
maybe
this
then,
deck
Oh,
was-
then this
sure.
deck is probably, like, correct to register instead of Jansen's build.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But there are other decks
Yeah.
which you need to account for. You mentioned that God's Willing was a huge blowout in his matchup against Julian.
Yes.
For that reason, I think that
not just-
Duress might be a really important sideboard card for
yeah.
this strategy.
especially
you know,
especially for sorry, well, when we get into Julian's deck, he put Raise the Alarm, and when we get to his deck,
Just
we'll talk.
being able to go wide.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, Duress is a good thing to add in. I was shaved on the dive down. I'm not sure why the dive down was there.
Yeah, it protects
Protect
Audacious Thief. I
Audacious
think that makes sense. But, like, he's sideboarding more removal spells in his deck that already has 20-something removal spells in it.
And the
Yeah.
island. I was questioning the island.
If he wants to raise his curve, how many? He's got 21 lands in his main deck.
If you're in the play, you can just add the island.
Well, I think if you bring in Cold Water
Sure,
Snapper
yeah.
and Ill-Gotten Inheritance and Devious Cover-Up,
Yeah.
then you bring in the island. Yeah. So, keep tuning, Luca. Keep tuning. I think you want to just diversify your bonds a little bit. You don't need to go all in on removal.
He also, I think he played
Get some card draw in there.
He played Demir Control also in the scholarship tournament as well.
Yeah. And I don't think he had any card
think-
draw spells in
no.
that deck either.
And then he just had to answer a hexproof creature.
Oh yeah, that's a sad day. All right, so I don't know how much time we're gonna spend here on Julian's deck since it's just a carbon copy of your end boss
Yes.
deck. Did you have a sideboard for your end boss deck?
Yes. So
Oh, okay.
he pretty
So
much
he did add the
he
raise the
raised
alarms?
alarm. Yes.
You didn't
Man.
have that in your list.
I'm not sure. I'll have to go back into it.
Okay.
But yeah. So in the finals match between Julian and Luca, so Julian won game 1. His opening hand was Julian's opening hand was 3 raise the alarm, 2.
This is in the post board game.
This is game 2. He had 1 land and I forgot a couple of 1-drops. Then he drew into his second land. I was like, Wow, like, can
Yeah.
you not get any more luckier than that?
Well, I mean, like you look at Luca's deck, and he literally only has 5 creatures that have more
Yeah.
than 1 toughness.
And
right?
you can only
So-
1-for-1 so many times.
Yeah, well, you 2-for-1, right? With
Yes.
the raise the alarm tokens.
Yeah.
So, I am, yeah.
I think I think Julian used more of the auras on his flyers than he did on the fencing ace.
Mhm.
Like I think fencing ace was like the one creature that he put the least amount of auras on. I could be wrong, but that's from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, just finding the spots to pull the trigger on your auras for this deck, I think, is the most important part of playing it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like getting the read on your opponent if you think they have the removal spell, or even just weighing, like, assuming they do have the removal spell, I need to play into it eventually,
Yeah.
right? So is now the best time to play into it, force them to have it.
Or like if you have a God's Winning
Yeah.
on hand.
So, this deck continues to be solid. I don't know
Yes.
how much more we can say that we didn't already say last week. God's Willing is great.
Yep.
I think he tweaked the number of the auras, but then like for the most part it is the same. I think he put 1 pacifism though. I think he could have put more.
Yeah.
I know my sideboard has Shivan Fires, and yeah.
I like pacifism in the board more than Shivan Fire, because, like, dealing with big creatures, I think, is the problem for this deck, right? You have Law Rune Enforcer, and
Oh, he was running Battalion Foot Soldier instead of Legion Conquistador.
yeah, and those
Original.
Mesa Unicorns instead of Bishop Soldiers.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait, yeah.
So much innovation.
Calls it a pants deck, but unicorns can't wear pants.
You're right. Okay, and then
Oh,
we have your
man.
end boss deck.
Yes.
You successfully defended the end boss loot from Julian, playing this pile.
So,
But before Mike starts explaining this deck, I show up at the tournament, and he hands me this deck, and he says, "What do you think?" And I'm like going through it. I make some suggestions, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this looks solid. Just like looking at it as a pile of cards in my hand. And then when he sent me the deck list for it, I finally saw it spread out, and I was like, God, I hate this deck so much.
Yeah, it looks really bad, but it works. It actually works most of the time.
Yeah. So take it away, Mike.
Yes.
That's my disclaimer at the beginning. But
So-
go ahead.
this is actually version 2 of the deck.
Yeah,
Version 1, instead of Landware Elves, it had a Board Grazer, because I wanted something that could answer, like, the flyers. But then, like, I think Sean, like, I forgot how Sean explained this, so Sean talked me into putting Landware Elves. So
it's just
you
a
don't have
much
enough
better
lands.
card.
Yes.
Well, that's the first reason. You don't have enough lands, right? You're playing like 21, 22?
22 lands.
Right.
Second one is you're not playing
In
any
standard,
bounce lands.
standard, the Scapeshift decks play like 27 lands, and some people are saying that's not enough to play
Yeah.
Arboreal Grazer.
So-
And then the second reason I gave you is that you don't care about you blocking your opponent's flyers, right?
Mhm.
Because if you get your game plan online, what you're doing is going to be so much more powerful
Yeah.
than your opponent's flyers. So
You know, if you only draw 2 lands, Llanowar Elf still gives you 3 mana, and Arboreal is only going to give you 2 mana still.
True. And, okay, so instead of, I think the version 1 had Arcane Flight, but Eric suggested Angelic Gift, because it does the same thing, but I get a card out of it.
yeah, well, it costs one more.
One more, yeah.
It doesn't give power, but you get the
Yeah.
card back, which
Yeah.
for this deck where you're just trying to like assemble Voltron, right?
Yes.
Drawing that extra card.
A lot of it is just cycling and digging
Yeah.
for your pieces.
Yes. And then instead of, I think I had a 2-2 split of Anticipate and Shimmer Possibility. It's just because I couldn't find Shimmer Possibility, or I couldn't go for a full set, so I just used what I have, actually.
Yeah, I do think that Shimmer is strictly better in this
Yeah.
deck, because
don't need to do
Anticipate is only better when you have other instants that you want to leave
Yeah.
up mana for, and
Yes.
the only other instant is Unsummon, which is so cheap that,
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
trying to play honest with this.
yeah, like, you could probably play this deck with your hand face up,
Yeah.
and you would still be completely fine.
So, I would say the MVP card of this deck is Unsummon.
No, there's a second one I can think of.
Just because, like, all the creatures have most of the creatures have entered the battlefield abilities, like Jungleborn Pioneer, Jay Guardian, and Sumala Woodshaper.
I feel like Woodshaper is the only one that you're actually excited about bouncing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, if Unsummon said pay 4 mana, make a 1/1 hexproof token, I would not be excited about playing that card, right? But if Unsummon said pay 5 mana, get Sumala Woodshaper's ability,
True,
right?
or-
I would be reasonably happy with playing that card.
Yeah, and people are usually not trying to kill the Sumala Woodshaper.
Yeah.
But the big thing was paying 5 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on a suited up Merfolk token.
That seems like
That's extra.
that sounds like desperate times.
So, well, but yeah, another addition with this Feral Invocation. Yeah. So, game 1 against Julian, I think he was blocked a creature, one of the hexproof creatures, but then before combat damage, I would flash in Feral Invocation. And then it was like, wait, what? That's a card? So, I was able to win a combat situation with that.
Nice.
Other than that, was just kind of just suiting up a Merfolk token and just kind of just swinging and gaining, like, I think game 2 I was gaining like 9 life a turn.
Yeah, I remember you being at 40 at the end of it.
Yeah. But it definitely, like, well, also Bant is my favorite color scheme of it. So when I first started playing, when I got back into playing Magic, I was playing Bat Enchantment. So this is right up my alley. And
I definitely top 8'd with the Rafik the Many deck in Standard.
Yes.
I top 8'd a PTQ playing that deck. It was a terrible deck, but anyway, that's a tangent.
Yeah.
So can I tell you all the different reasons I hate this deck now?
Go for it. I mean,
like, I don't think that it's a bad deck. I think that if it does its game plan, it is doing something powerful enough that it will usually win.
Yeah.
A couple of the reasons I hate it, though. Your mana base is atrocious.
I was not a part of this mana base.
Yeah, I would.
And, like, honestly, I don't think you can make it much better given the cards that you're playing.
Yes.
One question that I did have is, besides Squire's Devotion, do you need to be playing all of these white cards? Right? Like, if you bring your white splash down to just Squire's Devotion, you could, like, get enough forests in your deck that you can reasonably cast Land War Elves on turn 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I think Angelic Gift would be a good reason, but the Dub and the Vigil seem just like extra.
I mean, like, I do think that the white cards, and the Sumala Woodshaper, right? Like, they're all building towards the game plan, right? But is the game plan still good enough without the white cards? That's the question. Right. I think you for sure need Squire's Devotion.
Yes.
Right? Because, like, you just lose all your races if you don't get lifelink on your big giant Voltron creature.
But even then, you'd only need, like, what? Maybe 5 or 7 or 8 sources of white instead of all that. Oh, no, that's still...
It's
not too bad.
Well, you could probably play more forests and then more tap lands, right? Because like your forests allow you to play a Land War Elf on turn 1, and then like play your tap lands to get the color requirements on the other cards.
True.
I don't have the spreadsheet of like how many sources you need to hit certain things on one. I know that you need 14 untapped green sources to consistently cast Land War Elves on turn 1, and you have half that.
Well, either way, you don't need white until turn 4 at minimum.
Right.
Usually it's by turn 5, but by turn 4, that's when you'd start dropping.
Or turn 3 if you played Land War Elves on 1 and
That's
Pioneer
true.
on turn 2.
Yeah, but still, you don't really need that white because you're just trying to set up to actually get there with all of the other cards.
Right. So I think that your mana base is one of the weakest parts of this deck. And I don't mean that like the mana base that you built. I mean like the mana base that this particular pile of cards requires. I think it's one of the weakest parts of playing this strategy. The other part, the second reason that I hate playing this deck, and maybe I should have said this first, is that this deck just does stone cold nothing if you don't draw one of your 7 hexproof creatures. And sure, you have Shimmer of Possibility and Anticipate and Sumala Woodshaper to go looking for them, right? And, the London Mulligan rule is a thing. So, like, you're pretty, reasonably favored to have one in your opening hand if you're mulliganing for it.
Yeah.
True.
But the fact that the deck basically has to mulligan every hand that doesn't have Pioneer or Guardian in it, I think sucks.
Yeah, this
And
deck punishes
also
hard.
the fact that any deck that is trying to actively go under you has a reasonable shot at going under you.
True.
Like, makes me skeptical of if it's worth playing a high variance deck like this.
Well,
right? Like, you beat Julian in the finals, right? But he very easily could have just gone under you.
Yeah.
Right? If you like had an opener of Jade Guardian as your first hexproof creature and no Llanowar elves, right? You could have just been dead before you even had a chance to strap it up.
I think that if he brought this deck to the actual youth tournament, like this one, he probably wouldn't even get top.
Well, it depends.
Top two.
Depends who. Well, if I
Well-
were competing, well, I think if one of the kids were, because this
I
is a
think
very complex deck.
Most of, no, like if you played it,
Oh,
most of the decks are really, really fast and go wide, so it'd
Right,
be really
like if-
hard for you to.
If you played this against the two mono white players that were there
Mhm.
yesterday,
Yeah.
like, I don't think that you're favored in that
In fact,
matchup.
even the Is It one, I
Yeah.
think that one has a good shot against you.
Right. So, I do think that Unsummon helps with surviving, which
Yeah.
is what
Mhm.
the deck needs to do in the first 3 to 5 turns. Pacifism might also help with that, but then that opens the door of like, well, now you
Disenchants.
need more white sources. Maybe this deck needs to be like a green white base and then just like cut
Blue
the
for-
blue cards.
Yeah.
Like this could just be a straight green white deck.
Oh, in
Right.
fact, way
cut
before
cut
this
one with the wind, cut Unsummon, cut
Yeah.
Shimmer,
So,
and Anticipate.
when we first started brewing with this deck, we actually didn't have Angelic Gift, which was the reason why we needed flying.
Mm.
So,
This wasn't in standard before M20?
no.
No, I think
It
there's
just came out. So,
there's cobbled wings.
Yeah.
Before, like,
Yeah, Cobbled Wings is a lot worse than Angelic Gift.
mhm.
so like was either. Well, I was also thinking green white, and just put short sword, all the equipments. But I don't know. I had a lot of fun playing with this. So,
Oh yeah, it's definitely a fun deck.
but yeah, we like.
And I do think that Unsummon has some value, right?
Yes.
But again, you get that value by giving up your consistency in your land. So, like, you're playing an inconsistent mana base, you're playing an inconsistent game plan where, like, you have to actively mulligan for your hexproof creature or your deck does stone cold nothing, right? Like,
Mhm.
I just don't like playing decks that reduce my choices
You know,
that
if you,
much.
If you remove the Unsummon and replace it with Pacifism, it's pretty much the same thing.
It's similar.
But I
I'll
think-
give you that.
But I think it did. Well, I don't know. I just use
I
it
think
for generating
against
more
Julian
value.
specifically, pacifism would have been worse than Unsummon.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I do think that it's very possible that a straight green white version of this deck does exist.
Yeah.
Losing Shimmer does hurt because like
You
you're
need
only
to dig.
playing.
Yeah.
You really only have 8 hexproof creatures that are
Mhm.
worth like mulliganing to,
Yeah.
right? You're not gonna keep,
At that point,
you're not gonna keep
a.
an opener
Yeah.
with just Cold Water Snapper,
Yeah.
right? Like, so I
You
think
need the 4 of the Sumalas, that's for sure, if you do that.
right, but that's so slow.
No,
Yeah.
like, exactly.
That's so slow.
Exactly.
Right, like you would have to play something like Commune. No, not Commune can only get dinosaurs.
Adventurous
You'd have to play
Impulse.
Adventurous Impulse, but then like
No, that doesn't get
half
any-
of your
yeah.
deck is enchantment, so you're just gonna miss all
Yep.
the time. So I feel like this deck has some structural holes in it, and that's why I'm not a fan of it. Anyone that has watched any of my gameplay videos where I even try to play a deck like this, just every single time I play it, I sit down and I'm playing a match, I'm just like, God, this is miserable. This is just so miserable.
I've had so much fun when I did it in the Pauper tournaments on Arena, though.
Oh.
It's so good.
Well,
when it works.
when it works, it's great,
Yeah.
and then when it doesn't, it's...
Yeah.
Everybody's shaking their
Yeah.
head, but you know what? I had fun playing this deck.
Well, I'm just gonna say this: if you see this deck and you want to build it and play it, I'd recommend against it, because it punishes really, really hard if you don't pick the right hand.
Yeah.
Or like, if you don't choose the correct cards.
I
too.
would highly recommend, just if you're picking this deck up for the first time, as a general rule of thumb, if your opener does not have a Jungleborn Pioneer or a Jade Guardian in it,
Yep.
mulligan.
That's generally the rule.
Right? Like, if you follow that rule, like, even if you don't have a green source in your hand,
Mhm.
but you have a Jungleborn Pioneer, like, there's more green sources in the deck than there are hexproof creatures. So you're more likely to
You get
draw
to-
into a green source than you are to draw into a hexproof creature.
Hey, but the light game did help though from the tap lands. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I do agree that the tap lands made all of the 3-color decks that could potentially exist in Standard Pauper much better.
And there's a reason why most people run 2 colors.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry if I came off as
No,
incredibly harsh, Mike.
I like
Constructive criticism.
You know what? I like the deck. I knew I was gonna run it. So, like, I mean, I guess it was in my favor. But yeah, like, so look at the sideboard. Yeah, I kind of made it pretty.
Yeah,
straight.
I like the sideboard. You got a bunch of speed bumps in here.
And like all the games.
Right.
So like there's
Some life gain, some removal, negate. Yeah,
hey boy, I have fun with this deck. I think
assuming your colors work out, and assuming you draw your hexproof creatures, and assuming you're not dead by the time that both of those things happen, I think that this deck is fine.
well, trust me, like I mean, even then, like I don't think anyone's prepared for this deck. So like I wanted to play something that no one was prepared for.
Sure.
So like, of course, so like we saw mono white. This is the second tournament that had mono white. There were 0 mono red decks. So like the only red was red X, so red white and red blue. 1 mono black. So I felt like this was a good choice for me. And like so like if I was thinking about Luca's deck, his removal spells does nothing. So like half his deck is a pile of dead cards. So like he would only rely on Essence Scatter.
Yeah.
So
Which does get you really hard.
yes,
right?
if it gets me, it gets me really hard.
Yeah.
So, but in most cases, like with him playing the tap lands on turn 1, I have somewhat of a chance. So it kind of
Right.
slows him.
Mm-hmm.
He basically can't develop his board in the early game
Yes,
because he just
so-
has to hold up Essence Scatter.
So same thing. I have time to, and plus like I know it's really aggro based. Right now this meta game seems to be a lot aggro based. So I kind of wanted something, like, I played aggro the last time, so I figured I wanted something different.
Yeah, you definitely accomplished that.
Oh yeah, it's super fun.
Man.
It was cool gaining 9 life per turn.
As long as you have fun, man.
So
Yeah, you assembled the Voltron.
hopefully
All right, coming up, what do we got tournament wise?
next weekend. So this coming Saturday we have the next youth tournament at Minikyu Mililani. And then
So that is August 24th. It's a
Yes.
Saturday. Starts at 10:30.
Then September 7th is we're back at the Planet, and September 15th we're at Westside. So just to let you know, for the Westside Comics tournament, it is at their new location in IAEA. I know it says Kapolei there. Well, I guess the system didn't update.
It's tied to their Facebook page, which still says that they're at Kapolei, but it will be after their move to IAEA.
So
Are they still gonna keep the name Westside Comics even though they're not on the West Side anymore?
I think so. I haven't heard anything about the name
Okay.
change. I mean, it could be Central
Central Side Comics.
and Games. We love you, Julius. We love you, man. We love all you guys over there.
Yeah. And
But-
then that's it for tournaments until Throne
Throne
comes
Voting,
out, right?
yes.
So 3 more youth tournaments until rotation happens, and then rotation's going to be a real
Yeah.
big shakeup.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one year, I forgot who was. I think I was talking to you, Eric. So, oh no, in fact, you mentioned it. Where is well positioned, because even if it does lose Lightning Strike, you still have Jai's Greeting.
Yeah. You lose Opt, but
You're talking about the deck that Chase played.
Yeah.
yes.
Opt is a big
Op is a big
loss.
hit.
There-
Like,
Warlord's
you
Fury.
do still have Anticipate, I guess.
Oh, you use Shivan Fire.
So
I mean-
his list doesn't have Crash Through and
Warlord's Fury.
Warlord's Fury, the 2 cycle cards, which are very good on the list. But you still keep most.
A lot of the shelf
Yeah.
changes. Like if he wants, he could turn it to blue-red control.
The important part is that the payoff
Yeah.
cards are not rotating.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like the pieces in some of the enabling cards are rotating, but the payoff cards are
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Which is the
Winged
important
Words
part.
is such a good card.
Yeah.
Most of your guys are flyers.
Yeah. So Jace did not make the finals this week, but he did make some updates to his
Yes.
deck
Mhm.
based on the suggestions we made in the last cast, and I think that he's getting closer and closer to really fine tuning this archetype. So good for him.
Yes.
One thing that Eric and I did want to put out into the multiverse and see what people make of it is people should be playing with Uncaged Fury.
Yes, that is such a strong card.
Yes.
They really need to play more of these uncommon cards because there's a reason why they are uncommon.
Yeah. So I would play probably no more than like 2 copies in this
Sure.
deck, but like Uncaged Fury plus We Dragnauts just feels like you're cheating.
Mm-hmm. And it's known as Is It Blitz because you're trying to burst the opponent out. And in the real Pauper deck, you have a card called Teamer Battle Rage, which is
Yeah.
kind of the same thing except it's 2 mana and it gains trample. But since you have flyers, just having the +1/+1 is actually pretty good as well.
Yeah. So it would definitely be a good fit in this deck. Probably would be a good fit in some other decks. Although I do think that you don't just want to stick it in any red deck. You want to
No.
be building around
Yeah.
it. But
I think
I do. Basically, there's lots of room left to explore in the format. Would love to see people trying out new things.
yes.
Yeah, and see what people
we
come
have
up with.
you have 3 more tournaments to explore until rotation hits, and once we lose 4 sets,
Yeah, 4 sets.
we lose
Yeah,
4 sets.
4 sets.
So, make use of a lot of the cards. Like Rustling Falcon's gonna get hit, Silverbeak Griffin's gonna get hit,
Yeah.
Moment of Craving.
Moment of Craving. Yep. So, easy switch to Soren's Thirst.
All right, and last but not least, if you made it this far, you enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and if you
Yes.
want to support the project directly, go check out our Patreon page. Everything is completely donor funded, and we would love your support. Also, Eric has been working on our website.
Yes.
Yep.
This.
Yeah.
All right. Boom. So go check out our website. Is this?
I'll be adding new content. All of the tournament updates will be by the next day, and I'm thinking of doing a couple of deck techs and deck doctor kind of things. So yeah.
Yeah. So go check out the website. We will leave a link to it down in the description. So check that out. All right. Anything else, gentlemen? We're good.
Yeah, we're good, man. We hope to see you guys see the youth at the upcoming tournaments.
Yeah.
I want to see new decks.
We want
to see some new strong decks.
We want to see some spicy decks.
That would be awesome.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for stopping by, and we will catch you later.
See ya.
All right, guys.
Peace.